Yeah, very difficult to imagine that it will. There's a Viking being made from that starport, so no commitment from the side of Soul. I imagine we could see a Raven after, as he's not researching Cloak or anything like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, looks pretty good. But yeah, I don't know what the Cloak Banshee is gonna accomplish. I really hope that Soul can catch him off guard, but that's what it's gonna take.
I mean, it's going to be hard for Serral to figure out that this is Cloak Banshee. If Soul doesn't do anything silly and reveals like just one Banshee ahead of time, there is a chance that maybe we won't get a Spore Crawler in every base. But while I say that, the Spore Crawler is going up in every base. So Serral is thinking about it. He's still respecting the potential of Cloak Banshee showing up. And he's right. This is an excellent investment, because if you don't have a Spore Crawler and 2 Cloak Banshees show up, and maybe Soul would have been able to find those 7 or 8 drones that you're looking for.
Spores. It is so late into the game that Serral already has Overseers out, so he's super ready. And you know, like, I would have liked this. That's actually not too bad. Picking off a couple of Banelings for free, as well as a drone could have been 2. So a little bit better than I was expecting. A little bit sloppy actually from Serral on that initial defense.
I think I'll give him a pass. I think if we lose 1 or 2 Banelings, but we have 69 drones. Let's not forget that Yona has only lost a single drone. We're almost 7 minutes into the game. The Spire is close to finishing up. I think a Zerg player only losing a single drone up to this point without building a ridiculous amount of Zerglings. It's just economically, this is all very safe and sound at the side of our finished Zerg. And that's kind of all that he really cares about, I think. But kind of cool to see Serral display some good old Ling Bane Muda.
Hells yeah. And another cool thing to mention here is that those Hellions in most games would actually be dead, but this time around Soul has kept all of his Hellions alive, so I wouldn't mind them being morphed to Hellbats when he does decide to push out. I also would not mind a Thor being added. He's still adding tanks, so he's still looking for a push here. But yeah, Serral, I mean, he's doing great with his Muta so far.
The first push is going to be quite devastating, as Soul does lose a few SCVs, but Serral spots his army, and that is a very decent amount of Marines. There's a couple tanks in the mix. Those Hellions, like you mentioned before, they survived, so they have morphed into Hellbats. We have Veiling speed, but there are no upgrades on these Lings and Danes. A little bit risky there by Soul to fly around with a medevac with 8 Marines inside of it. Serral scouts it, gets on top of it, but he doesn't kill it yet, and I still think this is a pretty scary attack.
Yeah, it looks like it. I mean, the Hellions are going to have to do something good here. The Banshee's pulling the Mutas back, but if he's going to be wanting to pull those Mutas back, that's got to be go time for Soul, because those are going to die quickly. So that has to be his trigger. He is trying to push on forward here. He is doing a good job of containing the creep at the very least. And maybe that's enough. I mean, he's taking his 4th now behind this, and he's using this coverage to take it safely.
And it's obviously nice for Soul to have the Xel'Naga Watchtower that gives you a little bit of an extra heads up. If Serral is coming in from multiple angles, Serral is going to send a few Banelings forward, but they don't even kill the Hellbats. And this, I'm honestly starting to get a little bit worried here for Serral, especially if this just continues until 2-2 is done. But Soul is getting a little adventurous now. But yeah, we're going to take the fight off creep. And off creep is never a good place to fight. Look at how Soul is controlling his army at this point. A lot of Banelings have already gone down. So far, so good, man. Look at the units lost resource tab. Serral has lost 2.2k more than Soul did, and that army is still knocking on his front door.
Yeah, also completely love the spread to the right-hand side, covering for that ramp is Soul, which is really nice because those tanks are going to be able to shell away at the flank from Serral, and he was looking for it. So he Soul always kept one unit on that ramp and spotting for that. That is really, really well done. Has to be careful with those tanks. I still would love to see a Thor, as Serral has added even more Muta. Now it's getting a little bit dangerous, as he's going to get onto this mineral line and kill a lot of SCVs. Soul forced to pull back with his army. This could be an opening for Serral to push on out, but it's a little bit dangerous as all the creep has been cleared.
Things go from pretty decent to quite bad immediately, as 19 SCVs have gone down. Most of the turrets have fallen. The Muta count has taken a pretty serious number. We're at 19 at this point, and this is going to allow Serral to retake the Xel'Naga Watchtower. And he did not have to take a bad fight off creep, running into a Terran that was clearly set up for all of it. Brilliant Muta movement, because it was starting to look a little bit scary.
Yeah, and as soon as Serral sees that the Mutas have pulled back the army of Soul, he collapses onto that area on the Watchtower, and now he's going to be able to respread creep there and maybe potentially threaten this base from Soul, who now has finally added a Thor. I don't know where it is. It would benefit from being picked up by that medevac, but instead the medevac is going to die, and these Mutas are still causing havoc on his side of the map.
I mean, we have drilling claws, but unfortunately we only have 3 Widow Mines. There's one Thor that you've been talking about for a while, gets picked up immediately. There is a Widow Mine there that gets a beautiful shot off. So that's a lot of splash damage over those 18 Mutalisk or so. But Sol is taking more and more economic damage, and he's just not able to get the turret count up.
Yeah, trying to do a little bit of a drop here, but that's not gonna work out. I mean, all it took was for Serral to be paying attention, and of course he was. And yeah, I noticed the Widow Mine upgrade. Actually, it was researched a long time ago at this point, right? Like he decided for that to be his response to the Mutiling Bane, and then he didn't make any. It was very strange. Now the Thor is well, the second Thor is here. He has no coverage. So you want a couple of Marines there.
Banelings rolling into the third, connecting with the bunker. Not finding too many SCVs yet. A few will go down at the tail end of all of this, but yeah, while all of this is taking place, all the action is taking place on Sol's side of the map, which is just lovely as a Zerg player. Now Serral can get up to Hive. His 2-2 upgrades are about to finish up too. Sol never started 3-3. You know, you remember when he had 2-2 and Serral barely even started his 2-2 upgrades? Well, now we're dead even, and that's obviously not very good either for a Terran player. And you know what's incredibly telling? If our observer can just take a look at the vision of Sol, look how little Sol has seen at the bottom side of the map. Serral has exploded. He has taken the base at 6 o'clock. He's taking the base right next to it. And he's even taking the bottom right and the one with the rich Vespian gas. And Sol hasn't seen any of those 4 hatcheries. I think that kind of says enough.
Yeah, and this is enough for Serral to actually continue to trade effectively onto these bases, like resetting command center counts and doing as much damage as he is with those Mutalisks. This is just fantastic by Serral. I mean, he's not allowing for that extra base to go down. It's gonna try to land once again, and once again there is a new Zergling burrow there. So no doubt Serral is gonna go with his Muta and try to deny that base. I think at least I think that he should make that his priority at this point.
This is starting to turn into a horror movie for Sol. The entire map is covered in creeps. Serral sees pretty much everything. Sol hasn't seen anything else other than his little 4-base setup, and he's trying to get that 5th base going, but Serral's having none of it, and we're about to have a 2 upgrade advantage for Serral, while also getting Chitinous Plating on the Ultras, and they're off creep speed boost, whatever you call it. This is going from bad to worse real quick.
Yeah, and here's another pickoff on that command center. Somewhat predictable, I guess, at this point. Sol is going to try and repair it, but will it be enough? Yeah, there's Marines there, so I think he will be able to save it. A couple of snipes. Those ghosts are going to be good to provide value over time, but he's going to have a lot of value to make up for it.
Serral's going up to 9 bases, cats. I'm not even exaggerating. It's literally 9 bases, and Sol is trying to establish a 5th base. Still has not started those upgrades. I know I sound like a broken record, but it's a really big deal. How on earth are you supposed to take good fights? Maybe if you have a crap ton of Liberators and Ghosts, that's also not really the case. We do have a decent amount of tanks. It's 7 tanks. We're going up to 9. But Serral is going to prevent this command center from landing again. The SCBs are not in range to repair it. The Banelings are crashing into the Ghost. And it feels like this game is going to end before it ever even truly began.
Yeah, I mean, there was that one push for Sol, but he is so down in everything. I mean, he's still holding on. He's nearly maxed. It's so rare that we can call a game nearly over when both players are maxed, but it's just looking very, very difficult for the Polish Terran here.
Yeah. Sol is doing a good job in moving the Thors around defensively to make sure that he can protect his tanks against these Mutalisk of Yona. But the 3-3 upgrades are done for Serral. He's got a ridiculous economy. He's starting to get a pretty decent bank too. And even if some of these trades may not look like the prettiest trades and a lot of Banelings do go down, look at these Ultras. They're not going to take any damage of Marines and Marauders with only +2. A crap ton of SCVs for long distance mining there. So they're running straight into the meat grinder, and now even this orbital is running low on HP.
That might just be it. Yeah, I mean, for trades to be bad for Sol, he has to be trading worse than 3-to-1 ratio. So, you know, like the income tab is actually ridiculous, and it has been like this for a little while.
You know, normally it's very nice to mine 3.3k resources per minute. That's the advantage that Serral has over Sol at this point. And that means you can just roll Lings and Banelings in forever. GG. Do you think that Sol has a realistic shot at making it to the Inter Extreme Masters Katowice 2022?
Yes, I want to say yes.
I think that's fair. I do think he has the skills too. It's just that, I mean, maybe pick up a couple points in those European Pro Tour weeklies and just have 1 or 2 magical runs at these DreamHack events. And obviously that he loses to Serral here is no big deal, and that shouldn't shake up his confidence. But it is important for him, I think, to start the year off strong and make it out of this pretty difficult group, which of course has Mana, Hearthstone, and Lambo in it too.
Yes, indeed. And it is a different opening, but he does have that third relatively quickly, right? It's still kind of trending towards the same idea of I want a macro, even adding the tanks. We haven't seen him be reckless with the Hellions or try to, you know, run in there and get some drones. Not that that would ever work against Serral, but there's definitely similarities in the way that he approaches it.
Serral already had a tiny counter earlier where he was a bit annoying with a few Zerglings. He's going to try his luck one more time, as this time a couple of Zerglings are at the top side. He's going to morph a few of those links into Banelings. Now, Sol is already working on the little Sim City, and he does have a bunker behind his depots, but yeah, the Banelings can still kind of mess him up.
Yeah, it's a really nice wall-off with those depots, though. It's going to be difficult for those Banelings to get through all of that, though there is a little bit of a gap behind it, but they're going to take so much fire from the Marines if they choose to go that way. So we saw in the GSL finals, actually, Maru kind of lost all of his mineral line to slow Banelings. This is a much stronger attack from Serral, so we'll see.
Jagannatha?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. Serral's gonna send his units in when he knows that Sol has reinforced his push in the center. Yona gets a surround on the Hellions. The Banelings do find some good connections. I don't know if we're gonna get the bunker in the end. Oh, it's so close, but we're not gonna get the bunker. But we did get 8 SCVs already. And that, of course, means that Sol wants to get something done with the army he currently has in the center of the map. I love that tank behind the minerals on the high ground. That's super smart. But in the end, Yona does have enough units to force Sol to pick up his Marines and at least get one tank.
Yeah, and that's exactly the type of position that really favors Terran on this map. So good on Sol to kind of abuse that or try to. And we see that Serral was actually trying to take those rocks as they are in the orange, but wasn't quite able to. And now if Sol can keep up the pressure, he can keep that map topology working for him. So I would love to see that as Serral tries to sneak in to break rocks. That's so cool.
Yeah. Serral's running around with a few Zerglings too, trying to pick up reinforcements, but he barely missed them, and that means that Sol's getting more and more units towards this side of the map. Serral's at 70 workers, Sol's at 66. Seems like we lost a depot somewhere. The Queens are, I mean, doing whatever they can, but eventually Serral's going to need a few more units. He's got 17 Banelings, but most of them are at the ramp of his natural. Keep a close eye on that minimap because Serral's still active with those links, and I feel like he's just waiting for the right moment to go for it.
Yeah, but Sol's gonna spot it actually with his drop. Will he be able to pull back in time? I mean, this is a lot from Serral, so he will definitely take this position. I mean, maybe if Sol had his entire army there, maybe if he hadn't loaded up those Marines, but this looks like overwhelming numbers on the side of Serral. And with this, he's gonna take control of that area. He's gonna be able to break those rocks this time around. And this drop doesn't look like it's gonna accomplish too much.
You know what was really cool there? That Serral even had 10 Zerglings on that base with the rich Vespian guys there, because he realized that Sol put a tank behind that mineral line and the rocks before. And Serral was like, just in case there's a tank there again, I'm gonna make sure I have 10 links. We know that wasn't the case, but the fact that Serral immediately thinks about it and immediately makes an adjustment, yeah, you love to see it.
Yeah, most definitely. And I mean, you don't have to just think about it, you also have to execute after, right? Because you can't just attack move if you have little bits of army everywhere. So yeah, that really speaks to not just his strategic prowess, but also just his ability to execute on it. So yeah, Serral really is the complete package.
Sol has been able to pick off 7 queens this game. That's a very decent number.
Yeah, loads up right on time there with those medevacs. And yeah, to your point, I mean, he has been trading very effectively. Actually, he's 4k resources ahead of Serral and still doing work. So in spite of the cleanup from Serral in the middle of the map, Sol has been doing very well, and he's situating that 5th base. So this time around, I mean, he's already doing better 10 minutes in than he was 17 minutes in on the last map.
It's going to be a lot harder for Serral to do something about it because, yeah, we have a decent economy now, but we don't really have any units on the other side of the map. Do we really want to get super adventurous off creep with our Lings and Banelings when we don't even have Hive Tech yet? I think Sol's is going to get this base up and running. You're spot on. That is a lot more than we accomplished in the previous game.
It really is. The creep threat's not particularly great for Serral either, and it is kind of difficult to attack into these bases, right? Because on this map, the distances are so large that if this attack gets deflected, you have to go all the way around. And look at that Sim City from Sol. It's actually beautiful.
I know, I was about to say the same thing. I was like, look at this, man. This is a lovely little Terran mansion where Zerglings and Banelings are going to have a hard time really connecting with these SCVs. And even just getting on top of the tank, it's a little maze there. But yeah, that obviously helps out a lot defending. +3 attack is already on the way for Soul. That's also something we didn't get in the previous game. I don't know if he's going to win the game, Cats, but I definitely like this a lot more than I like the previous game.
Yeah, without a doubt. However, Serral still finding the lonely missile turret there. I mean, it's not something that is easy to account for if you're Soul because he had that bunker that he was accounting for. But Serral, knowing that he took down the bunker and the Marines, he's going to be able to push on forward and take that CC as well. Now Soul feeling pressured, and as we were praising him, Roddy, unfortunately, things have gone sideways for him.
Yeah, but we still have 84 SCVs and bases. We're dropping in the bottom. We've got a little setup in the center. So there's definitely still things to get excited over if you're Soul. Maybe took indeed a little more damage. There are burrowed Banelings in the center, by the way, Observer. And there's a lot of SCVs that are following a Marauder. Why are they following a Marauder? What?
I'm not sure.
What is this?
I can't even repair it. But yeah, those Banelings are slightly mispositioned for that location. They would be well positioned if Soul was attacking the high ground, though. If he was attacking the Vespin-rich geyser. So they might still come into play later.
I mean, the 4 factories are pumping out units, but you know what I'm a bit sad about is we get drilling claws, but there is a single mine out on the map. I don't really get it, because mines are so good against this composition when Zerg players run around with Lings and Banks. I mean, I've had Raynor here for a week, and every single time he ran into a mine, I could see him lose some hairs. And it's just kind of sad to see that Soul doesn't get any mines, despite the fact that he's getting drilling claws.
Yeah, and instead he's making a lot of Thors. It's a very interesting composition. He's basically going Thor Marauder. I kind of like it just because it's different. So it's gonna have to, you know, Serral's gonna have to adapt if he hasn't seen it before or something like that. I mean, it's a lot of factories making Thors at once. But at the same time, Thors do not really scale that well. Usually 1 Thor or 2 Thors are great against Muta styles because they force the Mutas already to fight differently, right? Like you can't clamp up your Mutas against just 1 or 2 Thors. But the 3rd Thor, the 4th Thor, they don't really accomplish much of anything because you know, like they're not going to help against the ground, and the Mutas are already going to be shy fighting against lesser numbers of Thors. Yes, indeed. Also pretty cool the way that we are splitting this map. It's left to right this time around. Usually it's split diagonally. But you see that Serral has been forced to expand vertically this time around, and so is Soul. So this is very interesting. I mean, the Ghosts, I kind of like the Marauders more and more the more I see Ghosts, right? Like now you have those tanky Marauders, those Thors as well. If it is Ultras that he's facing, which he is, or if it was Lurkers even, this composition looks great.
Couple of Banelings will get good connections as Soul was distracted by the Lings and the Ultralisk on the top side of the map. Still flying around with his Thors. You want to make sure you don't lose those, of course. Can get a couple shots up on the Ultras. Hello, yes, sort of. I mean, Serral is doing a really good job in just not taking the fights that Soul clearly wants to take.
And killing CCs as well. He's been really good at that. As another one goes down. But yeah, I mean, Serral, to a certain degree, I think that he's playing a little bit into Soul's composition in the sense that he is making those Ultras. I feel like Ling Bane or just Ling Bane would kind of destroy what Soul has been going for, and he has been gearing for this late game, kind of anticipating that this is what Serral does, perhaps. Regardless of that, I mean, Serral's still Serral, and it's going to be extremely difficult to take him down, but this is not impossible.
Yeah, at this point though, Serral is the one with a bank. Soul doesn't have a bank, and Serral is still outmining Soul with, you know, roughly a 2k resource advantage per minute. That's pretty big. Then I don't think losing a few Ultras here and there is bad. And it's also not like he completely forgot about the Banelings. We still see a lot of Banelings, more Banelings crashing into SCVs, and potentially a planetary. Can this one Ultra take it out? Soul needs to repair it, but Soul's busy microing on the top right side. Oh, he does repair it at the absolute last second, but it's a little bit too late. So another base falls for the Polish Terran.
Yeah, unfortunately only 4 SCVs left after that to repair. Serral does lose his northern base, but that's not going to be enough for Soul to be happy about this exchange. He is now pushing further onto creep and maybe feels committed. Again, this map, the distances to the other side of the map are going to be extremely long. So Soul this time around might be forced to commit onto this aggression. And maybe that's going to be good. I mean, Serral doesn't really have... actually, as I say that, I look at the bottom of the map and he's already expanding there too.
We have 55 banelings rolling into this Terran army. There were 2 Widow Mines. A lot of snipes do go down, so a few Ultras get popped. But obviously the tanks fall too, and a couple of other expensive Terran units were forced to run away. It's just like these trades do not favor Thor anymore, as another middle line is under fire. I mean, Serral's putting on a masterclass of how to shut down the Terran economy.
But no, the Ghosts are on the other side now, trying to fend off the Muta. And yeah, I mean, Serral has his choice of how to finish this game at this point, right? Oh, look at that. Okay. is three banelings even enough for killing a Ghost? I think you need more.
I think it's enough.
Okay.
100
Let's
HP? That seems like it's going to be enough.
I'm not gonna do maths right now, but yeah, I thought it was more than 3. Well, we'll see. Let's hope some Ghosts step on them. Find out.
I'm kind of sad that only now we've got 10 mines, but at this point, Soul's obviously kind of dead, right? Yeah, he still does have an army, and it's a pretty good army. Serral setting up the sandwich, and here we go. It's a ridiculous amount of banelings. 60 of them coming in from the right and the left side at the same time, forcing Soul to pick up all his goals, which means another planetary will fall and 20 additional SCVs in the process.
Yeah, and I think we are just waiting for Soul to process this information and get us out of here, because it's pretty much done.
110 Zerglings were in production there for Serral. Look at the mini-map. It's like a bunch of ants coming from every angle.
Disgusting. Oh, more disgusting. Now they're in a cocoon.
Only 6 banelings, but we're gonna morph 25 banelings as we speak, and Soul's army in the top side, it just looks kind of small and not very intimidating. I think the 110 Zerglings would honestly be enough here, because there was only a single mine in the mix. And I think this is gonna be it. We're looking at the final seconds of the second game. Serral's off to a great start too on his journey.